being an artist is not even how I would describe myself, really. I would describe myself as sober first. Part of the reason why I named myself Lady Henze was because of that juxtaposition. I enjoy that. I am not a lady when I am in my addiction.
Welcome to the I Had an Idea podcast.
Thanks for having me.
Here is how it works. You listen, we talk. I know you're busy and you don't owe us your time. We're going to keep things really short, no fluff.
Oh,
We're in the red zone.
Time's up. Next subject.
Joining me, your host, Trent Thompson, are people who not only have ideas, but do them, because the value of an idea lies in the using of it. We start with a segment called Brag, aka Give Yourself Flowers, aka Talk Your Shit, aka Who Even Are You? The guest has a chance to write down their own intro and convince you why the rest of this is worth listening to. If you want to support, I partnered up with Soothie to make the I Had an Idea notebook, so when you have an idea of your own, you don't forget to write it down. Welcome to the podcast.
A drum roll, please. Whoa! Now that's what I call it.
an idea.
Joining me on the podcast today, I have Lady Henze, aka Britt. Britt is a street artist, muralist, and studio painter living in Oakland. Although not originally from the Bay, she considers this place to be her heart and her home. She never had plans to be an artist and didn't go to school to be one. Her life was derailed by addiction in 2002, and she did not find sobriety until 2014. Clap, clap for Britt. She got sober in San Francisco, and for the first time in over a decade, she began to take in the world around her. And she saw that the city was covered in art, and she wanted to give something back to the people and the place that helped her find her life again. She picked up her first spray can in 2017, and hasn't looked back ever since. She loves all neon colors, Skittles above all else, a tattoo appointment in the books, and watching trashy TV with her partner and her 2 dogs. Britt, welcome to the podcast.
I'm delighted to be here.
I'm really excited to have you. Britt also left out that she has a podcast of her own, which is called No Cap with Britt, which you can go check out. Britt, before we dive in, I'm going to give you a little bit of a synopsis on how this tends to work. So we're going to do the 3 segments that we talked about. We try to keep them to around 5 minutes apiece. When we hit that magic 5-minute marker, we're going to get all sorts of anxiety. This light's going to go red. We're going to hear this terrible alarm sound like it's time to wake up, and that's how we're going to know it's time to move on. I do have all the authority here, so if we want to keep talking, we can, but that's just going to kind of be our marker. So let's dive right in, Britt. Tell me about something, an idea that you've had that you're proud of, that you feel like you brought to life.
You and I had talked before this, and we had thought maybe sobriety was a good topic, but I cannot say that was my idea, if we're going to be honest. It is absolutely on me to pursue sobriety on an everyday and continual basis, which is what I have to do. Mm-hmm. But I did not want to get sober, and it was definitely not my idea. It was the universe's idea to get me help at long last. And so on June 5th, 2014, I walked to CMPC Davies Hospital and was admitted there with a outrageous blood alcohol level. And I hadn't been able to walk in some time. I was having seizures very frequently. I wasn't doing great. And they admitted me for 3 days. And then I went to a treatment program for 42. And when I emerged, I was actually unhoused, and that really begins the series of people, places, and things that one of the reasons why I speak so lovingly of San Francisco is that I don't think I could have gotten sober anywhere else. The way things lined up for me and the way that people helped me out is really magical. And it started with Virginia Ramos, who is the tamale lady. And this is she's someone who would have been known in the bar scene in San Francisco. She would come to all the bars wheeling her cooler that she filled with homemade tamales, and she would sell them in the bars. And I met her at Zeitgeist, and she offered me a place to live for free. And I stayed with her until I got my very first job in sobriety, which was at Whole Foods on the market. in Castro.
Did you know Virginia leading up to that, or was she meeting you kind of at your rock bottom?
My boyfriend at the time was a bartender at the Zeitgeist, so
Got
he
it.
made that connection for me.
Okay.
But this woman didn't know me from Adam, you know? No reason to trust
Yeah.
me. I absolutely looked like a hot mess. 42 days sober, but also missing a lot of teeth.
Okay. You look great, by the way. The smile's looking solid.
Thank you. It's been a long journey, an expensive one, but we're getting there.
Nice.
Yeah, and she let me stay there, and that was just one of the many things that really helped me get my feet under me. And a story very similar to that helped me get my feet as an artist. I was working as the manager of a cafe in the Tenderloin called Jane, and around there's a bunch of galleries and cool stores, and I met all those people, and I would just kind of like hang out and shoot the shit with them and go to all their shows. And one of the gallery owners of a place called Fleetwood, and her name is Nico, just didn't take no for an answer. She's like, you're going to be in our 100 under 100 show. And so I painted that very first piece at my kitchen table. I was living off 24th in Florida in the Mission. I have a lot of stories about the Mission. I lived there many times, both in and out of addiction. And yeah, I sat down to do it, and I don't really know where that painting came from per se, but it was geometric. There were triangles involved. There were colors that you have seen in my work throughout.
And tape? Was there tape?
I didn't tape that first one.
Okay.
And I often don't tape when I hand paint. I tape when I spray paint.
Gotcha.
I guess I should have included this, but my big personal flex is not taping. And doing straight lines by hand is my specialty.
For those of you listening via audio, and it's not like the artwork is here. Go look at the work. The art podcasts make a lot more sense if you see what the work looks like. Britt's is meticulously clean, like computer clean, even though it's hand painted. And I'm sure it didn't start out meticulously clean like that. I feel really dumb because I have in my head some like secondary questions to each of the categories. And my first secondary question is, was it harder than you thought it would be? So I'm going to go back to the sobriety one and kind of talk me through, I don't want to say the mechanics because it's not like a business thing or an entrepreneurial thing, but tell me kind of the real like steps that it took for you to get there.
There's totally mechanics in it.
Okay.
And I run it like the most serious business, which is why it's being an artist is not even how I would describe myself really. I would describe myself as sober first, because without that I would be absolutely dead. There's just no question, because this is hard for people to understand. But if I don't live my life a certain way, I will go right back there. Because even in my mind, when I think about something maybe even just as casual as having a glass of wine with friends, I then immediately go to ripping shots at a bar, finding cocaine immediately after, probably going home with someone whose name I don't even care to know. I mean, these things happen quick. They happen within hours.
You're just jumping on the sled.
It's not. And part of the reason why I named myself Lady Henze was because of that juxtaposition. I enjoy that. I am not a lady when I am in my addiction.
Okay. What's the Henze?
That's my last name.
Okay, gotcha.
So is it hard? I don't think it's hard, but I do think it's really constant vigilance. I don't get to rest on my laurels. I participate in my sobriety every day. I take people through the steps and things they need to do to become sober, and I work with other women, and I show up for my sober community.
We're going to finish this one thought because I want to make a comment also about your hat and the value of no that I'm sure has played a big part in the sobriety, and I wonder if the hat was a intentional choice. I'm sure it was, but talk to me about the hat.
Yes, the no, it's often out of my mouth, and it's funny because people who know me know that I'll say no first, and then I'll think about it. Like the first answer is always no.
Okay, I'm not interested, and then you'll come back.
And then I'll think about it for a second. But yeah, I have to say no to a lot of things in my life. I don't get to casually make decisions anymore. Like there's places and things I don't get to do anymore just because I can't be around that shit. And I know myself, so.
All right, moving on to something that's supposed to be harder, even though I think we're talking about the hard thing to begin with. We're going to talk about an idea you've had that did not go as you planned. Yeah, what do you got? What do you got for this section?
You know, I think one of the things that has bitten me in the ass is because I am a perfectionist, I have often not swung for the fences on projects, and I've played it really safe because if there's something I know how to execute or a style or something I've done before and there's pressure or a deadline, I will reach for that thing. And in retrospect, I wish that I had some of the bigger walls I was given earlier on, or whatever, I wish I would have tried new and more different things rather than staying safe.
Yeah.
That being said, I'm not stressed about it. I don't think that there's no more opportunity. I don't live in that kind of, mentality of scarcity. So, but yeah, I wish that I had maybe even just using a projector. I didn't in the beginning. And I thought it was so cool to do that. And honestly, can I swear on this podcast?
Yeah. Yeah. Fuck it up, Britt.
Who gives a fuck if you use a projector? It's
Nobody.
your art. Yeah, I mean,
It looks cool at night too. If you ever walk into the people doing it.
From having ideas about, or like maybe initial ideas earlier on in my art career of how things are done or how things whatever. And, the more artists I've gotten to know and the more I've been around, I realize that there are no rules.
Yeah.
And I don't have to worry about those things. So I'm definitely in a mindset now to go bigger and go more. And you'll see that. I've got plans for that.
On just a creative question, because I've had the pleasure of seeing your work take a bunch of different forms over the last, I don't know how many years, maybe 4 years,
At least,
maybe 5 years since we had our infamous connection from our friend that we won't mention on the podcast,
which is too bad because it's such a good
it's
story.
such a good story. Like Britt, a lot of your work is this geometrics, and now you're seeing like these almost gradient geometrics. Everything's always been super bright. You have these like splissy, splashy, organic things happening. And I remember, I'm going to kind of bounce around a little bit, but early on, I remember having just like a technical conversation with you over Instagram where you're like, how do I make a line that is like this long on like a massive building? How do you even go about like creating that straight line? I'm really curious to kind of know how you ended up doing that, like what tricks you've ended up figuring out. And then also if you, for these massive projects that you have planned, are you trying to go with these like straight line geometrics? What if really given the full creative freedom, what are you doing?
I did find out a way, and I do think that there's other people in the industry who probably use laser levels and or lasers in order to do this at night, and that is not the way I've done it. I either use a chalk line, depending on what the wall is. If there's things in between it, of course, that becomes a little tricky, but here's what I do. I use a yardstick.
Okay.
And I kind of draw one point from the corner that I can visualize, and I keep using that yardstick down. It's gotten me the straightest out of everything I've ever tried. And that is meticulous. It's time consuming.
I feel like there's so much human error, room.
Yes, but also I found out something juicy, which is big walls allow for a lot of human error.
That's true.
You found that too.
If you're an inch off, like it looks perfect.
The eyes don't follow. That's not what the eye is looking at. So there's room for mistakes and there's room for error. And I mean, that, what I did that on was Riaz's house, that yardstick. I wasn't able to use a chalk line because
like
of the windows
surface.
and all the things and the way that this. So that's when I started using the yardstick.
Cool. Well, I feel like that wasn't so much about your failures, and I liked it because I got to learn some more about your actual practical art practice. We're going to beat the timer on this one because it's the least favorite section, and talk about what is getting you up in the morning. Nowadays, I feel like there's a lot of places you could take this one. It seems like you're up to a lot of stuff, but tell me what you're excited about.
I started teaching classes out of my space, and both my mom and my sister are teachers, and I'm someone who follows my intuition. And I woke up one day and decided I wanted to do that, use my space in a way. The space I have right now is phenomenal. It is a way better than anything I could have ever imagined happening to me, as is the rest of my life. And so I thought it's a shame to keep it all to myself. And so I am trying to do things to activate my space for people to come and be a part of. That's one. Two, I've gotten slightly distracted, and my fellow ADHDers will know it's not a good idea to pick up a side quest. You should really just focus on the things, which is why I've been really steadfast on the painting.
That's not what we preach here today.
Is that not what we preach here?
We're all about side quests.
Okay,
here.
side quest. I've watched these people on Instagram making these rugs, and I bought the stuff, these tufting rugs, and I'm going to set up I'm taking down my art wall in my studio and making a big frame, and I'm going to start doing the art that is hanging in the show with you right now.
Yeah.
That on rugs.
Oh, in rugs.
So I'm excited.
This is going to look so good in my house.
And then, so we can also lump this in. I'm totally cool with talking about things that I fail at. I think there's a lot more failure in my life sometimes with, it's a struggle sometimes to not act in a way that I was acting for a long time, meaning I used to be very guarded and afraid of people. And sometimes that gets the best of me, so it's like really interpersonal for me. But I'll tell you about something that I'm afraid to try, but I'm going to try, which is representational art.
Okay.
So
What are you going to
you've
represent?
seen me paint flowers before.
Yes.
And instead, I read this book called Virtual Light.
Okay.
It's a sci-fi book by William Gibson that takes place in San Francisco in the 80s.
Okay. Virtual light.
And it describes San Francisco in such a way, and also Oakland too, really specifically the Bay Bridge, in a way that I got so mesmerized. And he talks about the Bay Bridge being built out for communities. People live on it now, and it's stacked really high to the top. So people have made it themselves, and it's like there's pulley systems and neon lights and shops,
This
and
whole
everyone's
world of the
riding a
bridge.
bicycle. Yeah, because they live there now, because we're in a dystopian future,
Okay.
right? So I really glommed onto that because I love the idea of community, and I like the idea of what happens when nature kind of takes over, but technology is still king. But what happens with people when they are left to their own devices? And I like the idea that they built something on the Bay Bridge instead of like warring or something like that. And so I want to paint an entire series of what that looks like to me, how I envision
does
that.
the cover of the book look like?
That's a great question, and there isn't any representational art. I think it's just like pieces of like neon light in like a little geometric shape, if I can remember how it looks. I'm sure that there are different covers too.
It sounds like an amazing, like hyper detailed, challenging thing. Like I'm picturing this scene, this bridge, and then you just like have 100 people and everyone's doing something different in this village.
Well, if you want to talk about something that's a little bit like, I don't know, controversial, is that I plan on using AI to do this.
Ah,
Why wouldn't?
Not controversial to me, but go
I
ahead.
mean, why wouldn't I? I will absolutely. I have never used AI before. If someone was to ask me about Chat GPT, I'd be like, where do you find that? Do you type it? And I don't get very curious sometimes about things until way after everyone else has.
Okay.
I'm always slow to the roll. But that being said, I understand what AI is being used for, and because I don't paint like this, I think it's going to really help me get the visuals down because I don't draw.
Are you gonna just try to use the AI to get your reference images and then paint those tangibly?
Yeah,
Or is the actual product going to be an AI generated thing?
No, I'm definitely going to paint in
Okay.
real life. But I also am going to do like photography that I get from around here. It's part of the reason I love driving. I mean, even on the way to my studio, there's a lamp post that's completely covered with ivy. Then you look to your left and there's the train tracks, and there's buildings with graffiti all the way down. And then after that, it's like skyscrapers. I mean, I like the way that these things, I like the overgrown look.
Yeah.
What happens with what it would look like, all these shows that happen where the zombies are here or whatever. I
Yeah.
always like the visual imagery of
There's
what
just, like,
it
bodies
looks like.
flowing over.
No, it's not about the bodies. It's what the cities look like 20
Yeah.
years after. And I'm like, that's awesome.
Okay. I can't wait to see this painting.
I hope.
It's
Yeah,
gonna
I
be
love that I'm
epic.
talking about it in real life because that will really set a fire.
This is going to be epic. All right. That was wonderful timing. Let me turn this on because we have a surprise segment for you that I improvised right before while you were doing your 5-minute excellent intro. And I have used this one before. It's my own version of Bang, Marry, Kill. Okay? But we're going to do Drop by Do. It's a drop by do. That's what we call this. And I'm going to give you 3 ideas. Some are mine, some are other people's. You're going to tell me which one you want to do, which one you want to buy, and which one you want to drop.
Okay.
Here they are. Number 1, it's going to be an app that anyone can download. You're going to upload a photo of yourself, and it's going to scan every other person on the planet, all 8 billion of us, and it's going to find the person that looks the most like you. It's going to find your doppelganger. We're going to call it Doppelganger. That's an app, okay? That's number 1. Number 2 is going to be a series of artworks designed around dog characters sold as an NFT collection. And the third one is going to be a restaurant. We're going to call it the Free Market. And how it's going to work is everything on the menu, the prices are going to fluctuate based on how popular it is. So if everyone's ordering the hot dog becomes more expensive. If no one's ordering the hot dog becomes less. So if you really need to come in and just get a cheap meal, you can just get probably the shittiest thing on the menu, but the prices are going to just change, okay? So those are your 3 ideas. You got to drop one, you got to buy one, and you got to do one. Let us know.
Buy
What are you buying?
the app.
It's a sick app.
You know, what do you feel like when people tell you that they know someone who looks just like you?
I get that a lot. I'm pretty like generic looking, I'd say.
I disagree, but also I think I'm like, really, who has the audacity? I get like irritated.
It depends who they compare me to. I've been like, oh, thank you. If I get the Ryan Gosling or something, I'm like,
Yeah,
let's
all
go.
right.
So I'm usually, my interest is just peaked. I'm like, who is it? But I like it.
Drop the NFTs. We know they're dead.
They are dead. They are dead. And Britt's been saying they're dead since the very beginning.
It's very true. Thank you so much for putting that for the posterity. I love
She
that.
never liked them.
So I'm buying that restaurant.
Okay.
Oh, sorry, I'm doing the restaurant.
You're doing the restaurant.
Yeah.
You like the restaurant idea?
I like the idea of people being fed. I don't love the idea of them getting the shittier menu if they can't afford it, but we're playing a game, and so
Well, it's not necessarily, it could be a good item.
Right, but
It's just
people's
not having a
taste.
good day.
If it's in San Francisco, it's what are they waiting in line for 4 hours?
That's true. You're going to have the one item that's crazy expensive, and you'll quite literally get what you pay for. Britt, before we send you away, tell the people where they can find you, where they can sign up for your classes, where they can follow your artwork, where they can find your podcast. Give it all to us.
My artist name is Lady Henze, and you can find me on Instagram at Lady Henze. My website is ladyhenzeart.com, and that is where you can find more information about classes and my available artwork and previous mural installations. And you can follow me at No Cap with Britt, also on Instagram, which is where the home of my podcast is. My podcast is available on Spotify and Apple.
Or wherever you get your podcast. Or just Spotify and Apple.
Just Spotify and Apple.
Okay, never mind. Take that out. Britt.
Where else are you getting your podcast?
I don't know. I just always hear podcasters say that. This is my first time doing this, so
They have to be
saying it.
egalitarian, even though we know that those two have the hold.
Yeah, I guess so. Yeah. All right, I'm going to stop saying that. Okay, thank you for that.
You're welcome.
Britt, it's been a pleasure. Thank you for joining the I Had an Idea podcast. Cue the outro.
Roll, please. Whoa. Now that's what I call it.
An idea.
This song was brought to you by my friend Shido, aka Terrion Smith, aka Shogun Shido, aka DJ Jambalaya.